What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. I'm talking today about kind of a little bit of an under-the-radar movie that was coming out. I didn't know much about it until my friend hit me up and said he wanted to see it. So I checked out the trailer and it looked very, very intriguing to me. It is another one from the studio of A24. You guys know on this channel I have divisive opinions about A24. Some I absolutely love and some I absolutely loathe. Let's see which one this falls under. I'm talking about 2024's I Saw the TV Glow. And I saw this with my buddy, Michael Barnett. Shout out to Michael Barnett. Good movie friend of mine, good buddy. And we saw this together in theaters yesterday. So I wanted to take some notes on it and bring you guys my opinions because I have some pretty strong opinions about this movie. Spoiler free, it just came out, so I won't spoil anything for you guys. I will try and talk in vague terms and still accurately describe what I saw on the screen if I can get it out. Let's check it out. This one was written and directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. Hope I'm saying that correctly. And Jane was also the director of We're All Going to the World's Fair, which I did not see, but I heard some pretty divisive things about that one too, that some of the negatives in that film sound similar to the negatives in this film. So written and directed by Jane Schoenbrunn, starring Justice Smith as Owen, and Bridget Lundy Payne as Maddie, and also Fred Durst as the father character in this. Weird to see Limp Bizkit's Fred Durst, a 90s band leader that I loved, in a horror movie, horror thriller drama movie in 2024. But yes, Owen and Maddie basically are two socially awkward, quiet kind of friends who bond together over their love for a TV show. Owen's character has kind of some kind of a pull or an attraction to Maddie's character, and Maddie has an obsession with a show called The Pink Opaque. So the show comes on TV, and it's this kid's show that has some weird imagery and has some kind of a weird storyline. And Maddie kind of bonds with Owen over kind of being loners and kind of isolated kids, so they bond in spite of Maddie being 2 years older. So Owen takes a liking to Maddie's favorite show, The Pink Opaque, and they start to watch the show together and grow in their bond because Owen doesn't have much else in his life or people that really accept him. So these two loners bond over this show, and slowly the world of the show starts to kind of take over their real lives. They start to believe they're kind of part of this show. They start seeing signs that the show is now a part of them, and they've been kind of indoctrinated into this special almost cult of people that love this show that now see things in the show happening in their real lives. So it is that blending of fantasy and reality. How much of this is real life? How much is the show? How much is in their imagination? Can anybody else see what's going on around them? It becomes that sort of blending of worlds. And my first, starting with positives like I always do on this channel, my first positive is the framing of the shots in this movie. I am absolutely obsessed with the way this movie is framed. The framing things where the two characters are sitting juxtaposed from each other, adjacent from each other, having conversations, the framing of some of the long hallway shots, some of the things where they have big bright backgrounds with the characters in the foregrounds, sometimes where they change focus. They frame this movie so beautifully. The way the director and the cinematographer work together to set up where the shots start and end, and how the camera moves into the shots and where they frame the situation is so beautiful. It is some of the best framing that I've seen in a movie, maybe ever, if not at least in a very long time. I love the framing of this movie. Going into the next thing, piggybacking off that, the general cinematography of this is just beautiful. This thing is shot uniquely. It is shot in a way that is congruent but also different. You're following along with the characters on a journey. The camera is kind of like another character in this movie, and the way this thing is filmed in general is so, so beautiful. Going along with cinematography and framing, the lighting in this thing is so beautiful. My next note that I'll just piggyback onto this one is the color grading. The color grading and the general color in this movie is almost perfect. I can't imagine many films being more visually beautiful than this movie is. As the point of the story in this movie is to tell things from the world of The Pink Opaque, right? This show that is visually beautiful and kind of brings you in, but also has a dark undertone. That is exactly what this movie itself, the movie outside of the show, also shows us. Everything technically about the way this is shot, again, framing, cinematography, movement of camera, lighting, color grading, the coloring in the edit, everything looks so neon and so bright and so vivid. And when it has to look dark, it looks amazingly dark. Everything blends together so well in such a picture that pulls you in, just like the show that these characters are watching pulls them in. This kind of becomes, this movie itself, I Saw the TV Glow, brings you in with its glow, the pseudonym for the TV. Everything about this brings you into the movie, so you as a viewer are watching the characters as the characters are watching the show they're watching, pull them in. So the meta aspect of that is really, really stunning to watch. It is so pleasing to the eye that it is as perfect technically as a colored movie as I've seen in a long, long time. To go along with that, the special effects, when they use effects to go along with this movie, when you see graphical overlays, when there are things overlaid on the screen, when there are text and pictures laid over on the screen, they look a little bit different than what you'd expect for this movie about a kids show that is bringing these kids in. The effects look a little bit different, but they're really, really cool. The overlays, the graphics, the things they use to accentuate the character's descent into madness, whether it is like the TV static or there's some like throw up, some like spit up things that are used. There are some effects coming out of a TV they use. They look really, really cool. And they don't always necessarily match what I expect the tone to be, but it doesn't take you out of it. It actually brings you more into it because you're a little confused by what you're seeing. But they really use some of these overlays to accentuate the movie and make it look even more visually cool. Even the stuff that I feel like has a different tone or texture than I expect still kind of pulls you into that visual beauty of the movie. So again, talking about the physicality of this movie, watching it on screen, and the experience you have while watching it and being just drawn to what you're seeing in front of you is amazing. Another positive note that I wrote is Channel Zero. Those of you guys that know my channel and know that I talk about American Horror Story being kind of overrated because Channel Zero is the better version of that. Channel Zero is a anthology series on Sci-Fi. I think it's run for four seasons. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel, was on Shudder a bit too. It is a seasonal anthology that has like a 6 to 8 episode season. And one of the seasons, I think it was Candle Cove, I think it was the first or second season, that had a show about a kids' TV show that pulled the kids into it in a dark way and used the innocence of the kids' TV show to pull in and manipulate these kids to do bad things. That's kind of what this movie is going for here. The overarching story of I Saw the TV Glow and what they're going for as a plot and a story overall is very good, and it reminded me of Channel Zero in a very positive way. It didn't quite go as far into the horror aspects or the dark aspects or discover as much or explore as much as they could have, what that Channel Zero did, because Channel Zero did it much better. But reminding me of Channel Zero and having a plot that goes toward that direction is a positive thing for me. Another and the final positive I have listed here is the acting. I thought overall the acting was very good. When they had to be stoic, they were. These two characters overall, Bridget Lundy Payne and Justice Smith, played their awkward characters very well. Knowing when to delay their dialogue, knowing when to use their eyes, knowing when to kind of go over the top. Delivering a lot of long monologues, especially toward the end. You had Justice Smith breaking the fourth wall a bit, which was done very well. You had Bridget Lundy Payne doing these long monologues of exposition, where the writing itself wasn't always the best, or the choice of doing the monologues or the fourth wall breaks wasn't always the best, but their delivery and their consistency of acting and the way of delivering lines was really, really good. So I want to give those two, the whole cast in general. Fred Durst did a good job. But in general, Bridget Lundy Payne and Justice Smith had some pretty awkward characters and some pretty tough things to be consistent with in this movie, and they did a wonderful job. So that is another big positive. So with all those things being said, with the acting being good, with the overlays and the effects being good, and with all of the physicality and the technical aspects and the visual aspects of this movie being so good, where's the bad, right? And here comes the bad. You guys have heard me complain in this channel in the past, and some of you really agree and some of you don't agree at all, about my dislike for a lot of A24 films. There's some that I love, and there's some that do things very well. But A24, to me, in general, I know they're just a production company. They choose movies to bring into their fold, right? They're not the ones making the movie. But A24 has this thing they do where their stuff is so professionally shot, and it's so beautiful. The backgrounds, the locations, the way it's shot, the stylization, some of the underlying aspects of the characters. Some of these things are done so well, and it's such a well-produced, well put together, well shot with care movie, but the things they slack on really bad, aside from pacing, are the characters and the story. They tend to choose the visually stunning moments or the shocking moments or the really beautiful things on screen over the characters and the story. They sacrifice those things to have a pretty product or a shocking product. That is what A24 sacrifices. And for me, I'm a person, as a writer, that loves stories and characters. Those are my number one and number two things, respectively. And so when you don't have those things, I don't care how shocking or pretty your movie is. It's not a good movie to me because I want to see characters, character choices, character growth, and story. So they take the beautiful things over the character and the substance things. And that's what I think this movie did. This one right here is a quintessential aspect to me of what A24, the negative aspects for me of what A24 are. This is a visually almost perfect movie that does so many things well technically and makes so many choices that start to go in a good direction. But because of a lack of character growth and character choices that don't make sense and a linear, coherent story that is not present, that takes you out of the movie no matter how visually beautiful it looks. I look at things like The Witch that do that. I look at things like Midsommar. To a lesser extent, I look at things like Hereditary. There's so many other movies like that that are in that vein of A24 movies that could be so good and have so much to speak about, but don't give you enough substance to go with your sizzle, right? Not enough meat or enough steak to go with your sizzle to get the metaphor proper. So, number one, pacing. The pacing of this movie was dreadful. This was a hard movie to sit through at certain points. When you get to like the second act of the movie, this thing drags more than I've seen in a long time. This movie is only an hour and 40 minutes with credits, so it probably only runs like an hour and 35 minutes. That is a very average, positive length for a movie, but this thing feels every bit of 2 hours and 20 minutes. My body was hurting when I got up from this. I found myself wanting to check my phone because this thing was going on for so long. The pacing of this feels like a snail that needs to go to the bathroom. My goodness. Repeating the same beats. We see a lot of things that could be cut from this movie. We see characters kind of starting to go down a certain path, falling into this TV show, and then pulling back. And then falling into the show and getting a warning sign to go back, and then not going back. And then stepping forward and going, okay, this feels like I need to step back from it. I'm going to step back. And then going back into it again. It's the same beats over and over again, where nothing really ratchets up at the proper time. It takes so long for something to go from the same level. You go from a 1 to a 4, back down to a 1, back to a 4, back to a 1, up to a 5, back to a 1. Oh, here goes a big 7. They're going to come back down now because they realize that it's dangerous. Oh, back to a 1, back to a 7 again, back to a 1. It's the same things over and over again, and it feels very repetitive, especially when the pacing feels so slow. My next big negative here is there's no character growth for me. I feel like, yes, you get some really positive character affectations from Owen and Maddie as they're awkward and they're quiet and they talk slow and they're cautious and they're very withdrawn and scared of each other and scared of other people. And you get those really cool characters that start to bond, but their bond never leads to any growth. Yeah, they start to become friends, but they're still kind of awkward together. But they kind of connect, but they're still awkward together. They run away and they don't talk to each other and come back and they kind of talk to each other in the same way as before, but then kind of not. You don't see any growth out of these characters, both in their choices or in their charisma. I think that it would be a really nice story to draw you into the characters individually and as a bond for the characters if they had started off as these awkward loners and the bond of them being together had made them become more comfortable and confident in each other and in themselves. And suddenly they start to grow together because of this friendship that now makes them want to pull away from the rest of the world. I won't spoil again, no spoilers here, but the Owen character has to make a choice between kind of some things that are going on in his personal life and his regular realm and staying where he is at, or going off to join his other friend in a different place. And that decision could have been the whole crux of the movie. That could have led to a linear personal struggle and an inner pull between the side that he knows and the side that he wants to know. And if this whole side over here, the side that he's lived on his whole life, had continued to show you why he was awkward and what he was going through and why he had nothing here to stay for and why he should go off and join this friend that he's found this attraction and bond with and you see their bond, it would give you the inner struggles of Owen having to make this difficult choice. And you would have empathized more with him and more with them as they got more and more in danger. You didn't see that. You didn't see any growth. You saw the same character quietly struggling without showing you the struggle or giving you any reasons why they're leaning toward one way or the other in their decision making. So to me, the choices feel silly and the growth feels non-existent for me. Then we have Owen's choices was my next note. And it's not even just Owen's choices. I already discussed those, so I will stay off those. But some of the other characters' choices. There's a time when Owen is screaming for help for something, but nobody else is reacting. And Owen just goes on to continue to do the same things and not try to get anybody else's attention. And you're just like, is this happening in real life? Is it not happening in real life? They're not defining enough parameters to make you feel like he has an option to do something one way or the other. There's another time when Owen does something really drastic and you go, oh my God, wow, this person's in trouble. And the dad comes in and you see all these visual effects on screen. And you go, okay, his son is in trouble. He's freaking out. So the dad has to react to these visual effects on screen and go, oh my God, what is this? What is this world? What is happening? Am I going crazy? If they're part of this world that Owen's in. If they're not part of the world Owen's in, because they don't make that clear, if they're not, then your son is still going through this really dangerous thing that just happened. And the father should still be going, oh my God, why did you choose to do that? What are you doing? What do you see that I don't see? Either way, whether they want to go in this world or in our world, that choice is not made. And again, I know I'm being a little vague, but either way, there's not a choice made and there's not a crazy reaction by the dad to what the son has chosen to do one way or the other. And there's another, that my next note would be, they don't decide what world we're in. The directors, the writers, the filmmakers in general don't make a choice. They want to keep it ambiguous as to whether this world inside this show exists or not, right? We don't necessarily know if some of this is happening, it's not happening, other characters can see it, they can't see it, it's all in this person's mind, they're in a different world, they're in both worlds, we don't know what's happening. And yes, I get that you want to show things to your audience and make them decide for themselves. That ambiguity can be really cool. But when we don't know what the stakes are, because we don't know what the characters are fighting for or how they can choose one world over the other, then we're all just kind of sitting here going, okay, there's a bunch of flashy things on screen. We don't know who can see this. We don't know what it means if they give in to this. We don't know which side they should choose or why. So we're just seeing a bunch of really cool visual effects. And yeah, it's fun to look at. And yeah, there's some moments that you go, ooh, that's really cool. But beyond that, it doesn't resonate with you because you don't know what side you want Owen to choose, or who's on what side, or who can see what. Nobody else is talking to him, and he has no one else to talk to besides the one friend about these stakes, and nothing ever gets ratcheted up. Which leads to my final negative. Symbols over substance. So again, you get these cool graphical overlays, you get these cool effects, you get these cool moments, but you don't really get any clear rationale. You don't get any clear choices. They choose to tell you over show you a lot of times. In the last third of this film, there's a lot of long monologues. Again, there's a lot of Owen breaking the fourth wall, and there's a lot of Maddie giving you these long drawn-out monologues, especially one in particular, where there's all these weird things on screen, and Maddie's telling you all this cool exposition. And again, the dialogue itself is not bad, and Maddie, the character playing Maddie, does a great job in delivering all this and remembering all this and giving you good pauses and cadences, really good acting choices on the actor's part. But as a script, as something that's written, they're just dumping all this stuff at you and telling you exposition instead of showing you. And they're not really giving you any exposition at the same time. They're telling you a bunch of things in flowery language and really cool verbiage, but there's no real substance to it. So they're telling you instead of showing you, which is kind of usually a bad choice, but also saying nothing at the same time. So you're just getting bored and waiting for this long diatribe, this monotonous monologue to end. So for me, this is by far the worst movie that I've seen this year. And probably, in my opinion, will go down as the worst thing I've seen this year. And I feel really bad giving a movie that is this visually impressive and has this many opportunities to go places such a low score. But again, we get a bunch of people talking at us that doesn't make any sense. And when they're not talking, you're just getting cool imagery and you're not getting any kind of characters, any kind of growth, repercussions, decisions. It's all just ambiguous with a bunch of flashy things on the screen. So I'm going to give this one a 3.5 out of 10 for a slow-paced slog that could have gone to really dark places and really didn't. It just made you sit there and be confused the entire time. 3.5 out of 10 for me. Am I being too hard on this? If you've seen it, tell me in the comments down below and talk about why you liked it. If you want more of a spoiler review, tell me in the comments as well, and I'll kind of get more into spoilers with you. Please like, share, and subscribe this video, and if you like these deep dives, stay on this channel. I'm recording a Steeler video directly after this if you like football stuff. And if you want to see me review any more horror films in theaters or on streaming apps, please tell me down below what they are, and I will see you guys soon.